Hi, welcome to the third annual Teaching and Learning Conference at Blackpool College. I am Colette Mazzola and I am a teacher in computing. Today's conference will look into technology-enabled and enhanced learning, something that I'm currently very interested in, as we all are. So a little bit about me. So I am currently studying my Masters in Huddersfield. The MSc that I'm on is Technology Enhanced Learning. So it's directly in line with it. Some of the things about me, I do love research. I love to change things, switch things up. And technology, yeah, I am a bit of a technology nerd, so I think it's kind of up my street. What have I done already? I'm in the early stages of my MSc, so there's still a lot of work to be done. But in terms of research, I have looked into a lot of different areas. The areas that I've currently looked into are gamification in education, so using games in education. Flipped learning, mobile learning, MOOCs, massive open online courses, e-portfolios and reflective practice. As part of my MSc, I created a project using VideoScribe. I also looked into a pedagogical rationale, again, insight into teaching and learning online. So the aim of the session today is going to provide an insight, hopefully, so then you can develop knowledge in the following areas. The areas that we are going to have a look at is gamification in education, the VideoScribe project that I created, flipped learning and mobile learning. Okay, so the first area we're going to look at is a creative, fun, pedagogical concept, gamification in higher education. Gamification can offer many different advantages to teaching and learning. Gilly Salmon looked into this and her research states that game-based elements can apply educationally. A writer called Fuzzard in 2008 claims that games can encourage creative behaviour and divergent thoughts. Some of the research was really interesting, and Haythornwaite Andrew in 2011 looked at game-based learning and said it was an innovation derived from computer games. And as we know, lots of people like computer games. So when I was researching, the keywords that jumped out off the pages for me was innovation, fun, creative, motivation, participation. And these are all obviously buzzwords that we look for in education. But after I looked at the basic sort of surface area, I wanted to get under the hood, find out why this matters, if it can change my teaching and learning, the way I teach, or if it can have an impact on the curriculum. So obviously I had to have a look at the pedagogy behind it. So I found a paper from Jean, Sean and Lee in 2008, and they made note that gamification can offer a pedagogical shift from a didactic model of teaching, so very much instructional, traditional teacher, to a constructivist model. So obviously the students are creating the knowledge, which is something we look for in higher education at, wherever we can. We promote that independent, autonomous creation of knowledge. Also, at Fuzzard in 91 claimed, obviously this was earlier, he claimed that gamification can enhance, motivate, engage and encourage participation. So I thought that was really interesting. But then it made me think, well, there's got to be some sort of teaching framework or model that I can have a look at. So I had a look a little bit further under the hood, and I found out that Gilly Salmon in 2011 that she'd created gamification in Second Life. So Second Life is a 3D virtual environment. She used it as a higher education academic collaborative community. So essentially the students would create an avatar. An avatar is like a character, a game character, essentially a separate persona to themselves. When I read this research, I thought, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what happens when they actually go online. I wonder if they're the same person or whether they change slightly. A little further deeper look into this. And I found some research from John Suler, a psychologist, and he talks about the online disinhibition effect and how people can have an identity transformation online. They can believe that it's a completely different person. There's a fragmentation of identity, which I thought was absolutely fascinating and quite scary. But, students could get the confidence to speak online. So, if that student's quite quiet and shy in class, would being online help? Fascinating research. I didn't have the chance to have a look really deeply into this, so I hope to do that at another stage. Potentially another SRDS project, who knows? More work, eh? So I looked into Gilly Salmon's model. As you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, it is a hierarchy. and there are 5 stages. The stages are access and motivation, online socialization, information exchange, knowledge construction, and development. So I'm just going to break it down a little bit and try and put it into context of how I thought about it. So stage 1, access and motivation. Students gain access confidently and quickly. This is what she says. So the teacher's there to give support and guidance, allowing students to take ownership of that collaborative area. And this could be online or in the classroom, allowing students to have the confidence to take ownership. So I thought that was a real key foundation there. A big part for me was the online socialisation. This talks about scaffolding, networking, building relationships, creating a safe place, a sense of belonging, a positive environment for learning to take place. Now, when I was researching, I did find other research that looks at the process of learning and what we should be looking at and how it contributes. Gilly Salmon says that by using these stages, it can create that active learning collaboratively through communication. I looked at Jerome Bruner's The Process of Learning, as you can see towards the bottom of the page. In 1966, he says that, for students to become autonomous and to be actively learning, they need to be discussion in groups and practice by doing, teaching others. So that's very communicative, socialisation. And also, one of the keynote speakers from today, Deb Miller, her Learning Wheels, looks at that active learning and how her research says that, the communication stage and the collaboration stage completely is wrapped around this active learning, making sure that students can communicate and collaborate to, create that active collaborative environment. So communication can fall as webinars, texting, role-playing, group work, blogs, peer assessment. Collaboration could be in a seminar, a wiki, problem-solving, presentation, students becoming the teacher. So obviously that maps over all of these, and Gilly Salmon said that this was a really, really important foundation to consider. When we look at the HE strategy, it states that we work in partnership with staff and students to empower them to further develop our dynamic and engaged academic community. So there, that just jumps off the page at me as, we do have socialisation, whether it's online or face-to-face, and it's a really important aspect that we look for. So I thought that was a really good point. Going on to the next stage, stage 3, information exchange. Now this talks about, Gilly Salmon basically says that this section allows you to create a lively human network. Students actively participating, whether that's on a web-based VLE, on Twitter, Evernote, Skype, Google Drive, Moodle, WordPress, Scoop.it, Pinterest, things like social networks like Yammer, Facebook, Flickr. One of the ones that stood out to me was Turnitin, the peer mark function. I thought that was a really good one. She also talks about problem solving and linking data to theories. So obviously, if it is on an online environment, the teacher can provide sparks of information to stimulate dialogue. So if the conversation or forum went quiet, the teacher's there just providing those little sparks of information. It was Laurillard, providing sparks of information can stimulate dialogue. She looks at the conversational framework, and hers is very much about communication and communicative values. So yeah, the information exchange is quite an important area, and again, it's just having that base knowledge towards the bottom of the hierarchy there. As we go up into the next few steps, knowledge construction and development, the first thing that jumped out at me is it links to our HE strategy, because we are developing graduate skills and attributes. So students are becoming responsible for their learning. Students are becoming the teacher. This social dialogue is important to trigger that knowledge construction. It does foster those deeper thoughts and reflection. One of the big things that Gilly Salmon says is reflection is powerful and unique, and it affects the students' learning journeys. The students are becoming more autonomous at every stage, which was a really, really important aspect of her model. So again, it's looking into that Maslow's hierarchy of need, the synthesis of information, this knowledge construction and development, it kind of interlink in a way. It looks at high level constructivist collaboration, students engaging in active learning and not passive learning, widening viewpoints, enhancing debates, building that knowledge. One way it's referred to in the literature is communal constructivism, beautifully put. It provides discussion, motivation, challenges, debates. One of the key things that the research said, it shares good practice and facilitates the process of becoming critical and analytical, sharing directories to collaborate on. A lot of research states from Lord and Gilly Salmon that, the teacher is there to provide the sparks of information to guide, facilitate and stimulate the dialogue. When I looked at it originally, I thought, oh, this is very similar to Maslow's hierarchy of need. The top end of his model are synthesis of information, evaluation, those sort of key terms. But when you get under the hood of this model, it's pretty much the same thing. Linking back to Deb Miller's research in active learning, her communication and collaborative looks at those higher skills, creating the knowledge, building the knowledge, as with Jerome Bruner's active learning scale, the pyramids there, teaching others. And there's a high percentage of that is essentially what we do at higher education. We are triggering knowledge construction, fostering that deeper learning, allowing the students to become more autonomous. So obviously there's lots and lots of research there, and I wanted to get your opinions as well. So obviously the research does suggest that educational games can enhance motivation, engagement and participation, essentially offering a relaxed and fun learning experience. Do you think this is so? So at this stage, I would just ask you to have a discussion, think about your ideas, jot them down, and we can share them back. Okay, so the next section we're going to have a look at was that I was just going to show you the VideoScribe project that I made and just talk a little bit about the pedagogical driver and rationales to why I created it. So this is an example. So at this point, you're more than welcome to watch the VideoScribe project that I've created by pressing play. Hi, welcome. I'm Colette Mazzola. I'm a teacher in computing at Blackpool Nafarge College. Today, in this video, we are going to outline reflection, how to be more reflective, and more importantly, writing reflectively. This is not easy to start off with, and I am hoping this video will help and inspire you. Here goes. So, what is reflection? Reflective practice in its simplest form is thinking about or reflecting on what you do. It is closely linked to the concept of learning from experiences, in that you think about what we did, what happened, and decide what we could do differently the next time. There has been a lot of research in this area of reflection. Here are some academic quotes. We are definitely standing on the shoulders of giants. Moon stated in 1999, reflective practice is an active, dynamic, action-based and ethical set of skills, placed in real time and dealing with real, complex and difficult situations. Boyd and his fellow researchers in 1985 noted that reflection is an important human activity in which people recapture their experiences. They think about it, mull over it, evaluate it. Working with experience is important in learning. So what does this all mean? Well, reflection encourages us to become aware of our thoughts and feelings, which relate to a particular learning experience. You are probably thinking, yes, Colette, I do this every day. I am reflective in many situations. If you are, that's great. We're on the right page. If not, we'll get there. So reflection could be, for example, you're sat at home watching telly, playing a computer game, socialising with friends, walking the dog. For a few moments you think back about the day and remember you got an assignment. Instantly you remember the last grade you received and the feedback. Time management needs to be improved. You instantly feel sad you didn't achieve the grade you wanted and make the decision to start the assignment earlier. This is reflection at its best. Reflection happens on a daily basis. There are times when reflection needs to be documented. This can help analyse a situation and improve a specific thing, essentially helping you to become more autonomous. Graham Gibbs identified a series of 6 steps. These steps make up a cycle that can be applied over and over again. Like many other models, Gibbs takes into account feelings and emotions. Gibbs's model focuses on reflection in action. Gibbs, in 1988, created this reflective cycle, and it is fairly straightforward. So stage 1, description. What? Where were you? Who else was there? Why were you there? What were you doing? 2, feelings. What? How you were feeling? What you were thinking? How did it make you feel? What do you think now? Step 3, evaluation. So what? Try to evaluate or make a judgment about what has happened. Consider what was good about the experience and what was bad about the experience. Step 4, analysis. So what? Break the event down into small components. Explore them separately. So what went well? What didn't go so well? Step 5, conclusion. So what? Develop an insight into your own and other people's behaviours in terms of how they contributed to the outcome. So remember, reflection is based on the purpose of changing, so you should learn from your learning experiences. During this stage, you should ask yourself, what could I have done differently? How could this have been improved? Step 6, action plan. Now what? Would you act differently, or would you do it the same? How will this reflection affect your future practice? What additional knowledge, skills do you need to develop? Just remember guys, reflective practice is a tool for improving your learning, both as a student and in relation to your work life, or just normal life experiences. Although it will take some time to adopt the technique of reflective practice, it will ultimately save you time and energy in the future. I do hope this video has been useful, and I will see you soon. Thanks guys. So why did I create this project using VideoScribe? Well, I'd seen quite a few videos already been made with the interactive whiteboard and the storytelling sort of aspects, and I thought it was a really creative approach, something really different, and I wanted to see how hard it was as well. I wanted to see if I could actually do it, or whether you had to be, a designer, let's say. But if I'm perfectly honest, it was quite easy to do. The interface, VideoScribe's interface, was really straightforward, pretty much drag and drop. You just double click on something to make it longer or shorter. Yeah, it was quite fun actually. I didn't mind. Obviously, we all are super busy and we don't have time to explore these really difficult interfaces, but I would recommend having a little look at VideoScribe because it is really easy to use, and it's something different. You have a play around with it maybe. The students really liked it as well, which I thought was a really good point. One of the good things about the VideoScribe project as well was it is accessible, so students could get this video anywhere, whether it's on a tablet, a phone, PC. So the pedagogical driver behind it, I used it as a flipped learning activity. The intention was students would watch it prior to the session. I did some research, more research, and I found out some pretty key information really. So Avis, Fisher and Thompson in 2010 looked at YouTube and how it can make learning fun and more memorable for students. Mays and De Freitas in 2004 looked at images and text and how that can foster deeper learning. And that's something obviously we all try to do, is make students remember, make it fun, and obviously get that deeper learning. So that was a really a key bit that stood out for me. Some of the information that I found from Bennett, Iredale and Reynolds in the book Teaching in the Lifelong Learning that was created in 2010, and that talks about e-learning and it providing opportunities to absorb a key concept, working flexibly in a personalised manner, which extends classroom-based learning. Which, to be fair, that was kind of like, oh, this is really good. It's more into the side of flipped learning. So why did I choose flipped? Well, firstly, of course, it aligns closely to the HE strategic aims that we have. So keywords from the strategic aims that we have at Blackpool and Fylde College is things like vibrant, engaging, supportive, challenging, inspire, future focused, developing knowledge, preparing, skills, confidence, progression, guidance, opportunity. So all these things were jumping out at me as I was reading the HE Strategic Aims, and I thought, you know what, flipped learning can embody most of these, so I'm going to go for it. So I did. So flipped learning does allow the teacher to provide pre and post lesson activities. It does change from that traditional didactic lesson and allows for a more optimised classroom time. It has a very positive impact on the students. It enhances their creativity and creates engaging classrooms. And I only know this from experience because obviously I use this in a lesson, analyse what had happened. So it promotes that active learning. So again, going back to the model, Gilly-Sam says we want to promote active learning. Flipped learning is something that really, really captures that. Promoting active learning, one of the things that kept coming back to me when I was looking at the research was students become active producers of knowledge as opposed to passive consumers. Now these words keep popping up all the time throughout this research. So I looked a little bit further into it, and I found that giving students ownership, going back to Gilly-Salmon's work, creating autonomous, independent students, that high-level constructivist collaboration, building knowledge, that communal constructivism, fostering deeper learning as opposed to surface learning. Yeah, it was really, really interesting research, and it definitely, the pedagogical driver underneath the hood of the car, let's say, so to speak. Yeah, there's definitely a place for it in higher education, and I think it's something that I did traditionally already, but I just didn't realise that it was something, it was a thing. So yeah, it was nice to find out more information about it, to be fair. For my project, I had to create a lesson plan, a rationale of how and why I used it the way I did. I'll just give you a bit of an insight as to how I used it. The flipped concept in the classroom activity looked a little bit like this. So the students would watch the video pre-class, let's say. So it was in a tutorial. Please go and watch this video. The topic of the video is obviously reflection and writing reflectively. And the student, I thought that was an area the students always seem to struggle with. I mean, I don't know about you, but my students, computing students, just don't want to be reflective. I don't know, it probably just does, but there we go. So at the beginning of the lesson, I asked students, just who managed to watch the video. It's only 4 minutes long. If not, here's a quick 4 minutes, 5 minutes, just to recap. I split them into groups, provided them with the worksheet number 1, just on the right hand side there, so it obviously doesn't have the description in, and worksheet 2 has the prompts, let's say. And I asked them to collaboratively reflect on their last assignment and the feedback that they received. Using Gibbs's reflective cycle, complete each section to produce a reflection. After the allocated time, I asked the groups to swap their reflection with another group, obviously promoting that peer-to-peer marking, peer-to-peer assessment, and trying to build that constructive collaboration in the classroom, encouraging that self-assessment, peer assessment. When I look at the assessment and feedback guide for Blackpool Macleod College on page 10, it talks very specifically about facilitating the development of self-assessment, reflection in learning, peer assessment, and how it can be successful in giving students the ability to evaluate their own work. And it's something we do continuously throughout our HE classes. As an evaluation of this project, it did allow the students to look at the reflections and think, oh, this is useful, I can do this. And not necessarily having to write it down and say, oh, how did I feel about this? Oh, I feel happy. They didn't have to do that, but they just basically had this discussion with themselves in the head. And a lot of the feedback was, well, I do this all the time, Colette. It's something that I do. I just didn't know it was a thing. So just as I didn't think flipped learning was an actual thing, they didn't realise reflection was a thing. Obviously, Gibbs's model is not the only model out there. There's many, 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 many models that you can use for reflection, and I'm sure you do. But this just, I don't know, it was a different delivery method and a different approach, and it seemed to have a really positive impact. So, I was pleased with that. So finally on this point, I just wanted to have a little bit of a discussion. Have you done flipped learning? Is it something you did before you knew it was a thing like me? Or, can you think of an area that we can flip in the curriculum area? Just have a little bit of a discussion, write down your ideas, and you can share back. Thank you. So the final approach to teaching and learning that we're going to have a look at is mobile learning. So the research indicators, there's quite a lot of research on this. Some very controversial, some, pretty good. So I'll just outline some of the key points first, just to give it a bit of substance. So Perry in 2014 said that it challenges active learning. Simons talked about mobile learning as it encourages that network of learning to flourish. So again, Gilly Salmon says we need to be building this human network of learning. So this research looked at that as well. He also stated that it allows students to become the teacher, which I thought was an interesting concept. Lorillard in 2007 talked about enabling this mobile learning enables exciting opportunities for teachers. Downs in 2014 talks about it allows more independent, open, autonomous learning to occur, which again aligns directly to our HE strategic aims, and again works with Gilly Salmon's model of integrating this into teaching and learning. Some of the research, like for instance Kim and Jin in 2015, talked about how mobile devices are normal daily interaction devices, technically sophisticated devices that we should be using more in the classroom to promote technology enabled and enhanced learning. Perry again talks about, learning taking place anywhere at any time about anything. Lorillard in 2007, she states, mobile learning offers the notion of serendipity, innovation and creativity. Students are becoming active creators of knowledge, and mobile devices are obviously hand in hand. Some research from John Sula in 2004 talks about people online can be seen to be innovators, independent-minded explorers. I thought that was a nice way of putting it. Independent-minded explorers. That's what our students are, really, aren't they? They are creators of knowledge, and they're exploring independently. So Lorillard finally, in 2007, stated that mobile learning can allow students to take ownership of their learning, contributing to them becoming more autonomous, which again, autonomous, I feel like I've said it a million times already, but we are creating that autonomous, independent, critical, analytical student. So yeah, it was there's a lot of research around this, but again, the pedagogy that sits behind it has been critiqued, let's say, quite a lot, and it is quite controversial. The pedagogical driver that I did have a look at, I chose connectivism to have a look into. Is quite a controversial pedagogy. The research states that connectivism enables a network of learning. It facilitates continual learning, decision making, and allowing students to choose what information is important to their learning journey, as opposed to the teacher providing those sparks of information and stimulating dialogue. I don't know, I'm not 100% sold. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research. I like the idea of students being able to choose the information that's important, but again, I still feel like it needs that facilitation of the tutor, provide those sparks of knowledge and, stimulate that dialogue, because otherwise the students could have this big network of learning that's going off in completely the wrong direction and nobody's setting any boundaries, so to speak. So I like the idea of connectivism, but I don't know. But there was some positives. It can promote independent research, so that's a really good point. It does, well, it says it can encourage scaffolding for students to become autonomous, open, critical and analytical, which, to be fair, it possibly could, but I still feel like it needs that facilitator, teacher, somebody guiding them. They still need the hand-holding, let's say. Not as much at higher education, but I still think we need to offer those sparks of information that Lorillard and Gilly Salmon talk about. The way it's described in the research is it's a large network of learning. It's a learning community. So in that respect, the way I interpreted it as connectivism is involved in Gilly Salmon's model in the online socialisation, and in Lorillard's conversational framework, it is, the communication aspect. And in Deb Miller's learning wheels, it's the communication, the collaboration. In Jerome Bruner's research, it's them lower levels of students becoming the teacher, continuous communicative style of teaching that, we embody. So I looked at the HE strategic aims, and point 6 kind of worked for me in this respect. So to work in partnership with our students and staff, empowering them to further develop our dynamic and engaged academic community. So I've said it before and I'll say it again, we are working towards developing this dynamic, engaged academic community, and connectivism, it kind of feels like it goes hand in hand, but again, I think further research is going to clarify that completely for me, so I'm going to have to do more research on that, I think. Just as a final point, I would like to have a discussion using a Padlet if we can. What I would like you to do is, using the devices on your table, your mobile phones, I would like you to scan this QR code and it will open a web page which is a Padlet page. Padlet is a collaborative, online, interactive platform, and I just want you to double click on the page and just add your opinion to this. Do you feel mobile learning can be used in your curriculum area? If you already use mobiles in your teaching and learning, in your lesson plans, could you share that good practice with us? I've thought about many different ways I can use mobile learning in the classroom, but every time I try, I don't know, I'm still not sold. I think there's work to be done, and I think there's a lot of research out there that, I do feel like it needs to give me more. I need something solid. I need a pedagogical driver that says, this is going to work 100%. So I would like to discuss your ideas and your comments. So if you just go ahead and scan the QR code and pop us some feedback on there, we'll have a bit of a discussion about it. So thank you for listening. I do hope that I've provided you some interesting concepts and ideas into technology-enabled and enhanced learning. If you found anything particularly interesting, all my research is on ScholarNet. You're more than welcome to make some comments or, help me out with a bit more research or whatever. I'm open to all suggestions and ideas. If you see anything that's potential, you want to do an SRDS project or collaboration in some way, shape or form, please feel free to get in touch. I will be doing lots more research in these areas. So obviously my details are on the page, so if you want to get in contact, you are more than welcome to. And thank you very much for listening to me and participating in today.